Hey there, thank you so much for joining me tonight for an interview to celebrate people in the community who are living consciously. ConsciousDallas.com presents The Power of One. Tonight, my special guest is Chef Otto Borsich.
Hi, how are you? It's good to see you.
Thank you. I know if anyone is watching and they know you, they're probably wondering, what the hell is he doing here? Because he lives in South Carolina and this is ConsciousDallas.com. But to me, you're a Texas transplant and we always have this place in your heart, and I think you're going to come back. Yeah?
That's a correct train of thought, yeah.
Oh yeah, you're going to go with that? Okay, cool. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, it's awesome.
I have been in awe of you over the years that I've known you, in watching how big your heart is and how much you give to people, regularly. And I'm wondering, I've read your book, but can you give us an overall sense of when you first felt like it was part of your responsibility to share what you have with people who have not?
Yeah, I can pretty much pinpoint to like when that moment in time happened, believe it or not. So it was the 80s. And as you know, that was an incredible decade in this nation's history with Reaganomics. And some people even compared New York City to ancient Rome at that time because of the decadence and all the insane behavior, which led to that movie Wall Street, if you will. So I was doing my apprenticeship at the Pierre Hotel in New York City. I was a young 20-something kid wanting to be a chef. And I'd be going to work every day at the Pierre Hotel, 5-star, super opulent, incredible swank property. And along my way to work, I would be witnessing people who were rummaging through the trash to get their minimum daily requirement, if you will. And I thought to myself, I work at a hotel that charges $40 for a rack of lamb. This is 1983, 84. And this poor soul doesn't have $40 a month to live off. Something's wrong with this picture in the land of plenty. We put a man on the moon, but we can't feed people in our backyard. So honestly, I started making phone calls. I called the social services of New York City. I called orphanages. I called a few other people. And they were actually questioning my goodness that I wanted to feed people. So the first thing I ever did after noticing this was I took a group of kids from the Harriet Tubman Welfare Hotel and I called the Intrepid Sea Air Space Museum, an aircraft carrier, which is now a museum in the Hudson River, and got the admission waived. I had a magician come. I had a musician as well. The guy played guitar, the magician did magic tricks, and these kids were just blown away at all this activity, being on the flat top of this carrier and seeing all these old naval aircraft. And the one really cool thing I remember out of all that day was, here comes a New York City police helicopter just buzzing down the Hudson River, but low enough to see, like, you know, the pilot inside there. And he saw all these kids on the fantail. And he turns the helicopter around and he literally stopped about 20 foot away from the fantail and hovered and had his sirens going, the lights going, and these kids were flipping out. So from there, I started doing stuff. I took kids to the UN on Martin Luther King Day.
Wait, I want to stop you
Go
right
ahead.
there because I want to talk about that story
Okay.
that you just told.
Okay.
One thing I love about it is that it's such a beautiful example of how when your heart is touched, when you do feel a shift inside yourself, it doesn't take a lot to make a difference. Oh. You just chose to go and do that. And there's a second thing about that story that I love, is that when we live that way, when we decide to be good people and elevate humanity, it does affect other people, I believe. And that helicopter guy saw what you were doing in some way, and it affected him and how he wanted to do what he was doing. It's really beautiful. It's like a ripple effect. Yeah.
It's the universal energy at work.
It is the universal energy at work. And I've watched you volunteer for so many charitable events over the time that I've known you. And at one point, it actually got you in a little bit of trouble because there were so many people in your life who were volunteering to be there with you as you were doing your good work in the world. And it turned out that the people you worked for at the time may not have thought that was very kosher, and it affected you negatively. And it was at the same time that you were going through a really challenging time in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind talking about that a little bit? Because I love the inspirational part of how you came out of it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I had my bout with depression. Not fun. Depression knows no gender. It knows no creed, color, religion, social, economic situation. It does not care who you are. It will attack anybody at any given time. Depression is a monster. So, hey, happy-go-lucky Otto got about depression. And man, that strapped me to my bed for months on end, not even wanting answering my door when my Christian brothers were knocking on it to help me out. And then one day, my friend Bert calls me up and says, hey, you want to go do prison ministry with me tomorrow night? And I said to him, yeah, what else am I going to do? Like, sure, whatever. So I went there. We went to Venus, Texas, to they pronounce it Estes unit. I call it Estes, like the rocket. But anyway, we got there, and on the way there, it's about an hour from this where we're filming here. We got there, and Bert says to me, hey, I want you to tell your story to the inmates. I said, what story? I want you to tell you a story about how you came to Christ. I said, okay. So it's tough under normal circumstances speaking to inmates, because you got to be so aware about what you're going to say or what not you're going to say to these people. So I just got up and I told my story, and we had some praise and worship and men singing in there. And after it was all said and done, we were there about 2.5, 3 hours. I'm walking out of there, and that's the key word, Christine. I walked out and left 40 guys back in that cell block behind me, and I thought to myself, you're walking out of here right now. Those guys aren't that you were ministering to. Like, what in the world do you have to be depressed about?
Did that help you move back into your gratitude?
Well, depression is a monster, like I said, and it didn't just flip the switch like, oh, I'm not depressed anymore.
Sure.
But it's definitely something, and when I speak about this, I tell people that, like, man, when you're depressed, probably the best thing you can do is go out and be in the service of others. You got to stay busy. You can't isolate yourself and stay locked into your house. So that was the start of me getting out of depression. But what was a real kicker was when I told the inmates that I was leaving Dallas-Fort Worth and moving to South Carolina to be with my aging father, to be his caretaker. Yeah. There was an artist in that cell block, and he took a manila folder and he drew a character of me like a superhero standing on the beach with this lighthouse with a beam of light going out there, and put some biblical passages on that. And it was so funny. There I'm standing on the beach, and it's like the Superman logo, and he had a giant A on my chest. And I got that. I said, what's the A for? He said, well, your name is Otto. Bless his heart.
Aww.
So, and then I opened it up, and every inmate, 40 inmates, signed that card. That is the single most treasured gift I have in my possession, that 40 men took time to create a card and give it to me. And let me tell you, God can and will use anybody at any given time to give glory to his kingdom. And if I can't paint a better picture than that, I don't know who can.
It's really beautiful how you went there to help them and they ended up helping you. They didn't even know it. It pulled you out and made you start trying to decide to dig yourself out. And I'm glad you did.
And I'm glad I did too. And, see, back to, it never fails. I've been on mission trips around the planet. I've been in Venus, Texas doing ministry to prisoners. You go there to bless people, and somehow, some way, you're the one getting blessed. Amen.
It's a great
incredible.
Example. Yes. And I tell people who are struggling with depression that all the time, to get out and help people. And when you see people, not necessarily even who are worse off than you, but people who are struggling, just to know that you're not alone is so important. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Another thing that I've noticed that I want to talk about, if you're okay with it.
Well, ask the question and we'll see.
Okay, yeah. Feel free to say no. It wasn't with you first time. Since I met you, I've known you 10 years or so, and you've had a dream that seems so huge and so outrageous and so what most people would claim is not doable, and you've never let it go. And the number of people, what you just said is when you commit to something, the things start falling into place. You start attracting the things necessary. You've had so many things happen. Anyway, I'm going to shut up. And will you tell us a little bit about your idea to have a feast on the White House lawn?
Yeah, sure. So this goes back to my Manhattan days and in the 80s and the greed and the decadence and then the have-nots or the have-less, the have-nots having even less. So there's got to be something I can do somehow, some way to mobilize chefs into action and create some awareness on a major level. And this lightning bolt came to me one day, and I said, "That's it, Otto. You're going to have a feast on the White House lawn. Feed every American starting today." So I had this brainstorm that I was going to get 50 chefs, one chef from every state, to converge on the White House lawn on October 16th, World Food Day, which is annually observed on October 16th.
And how many presidents have you been in touch with so far?
I've been in touch with every president since Bush the first.
Right.
And I have documentation like this. And I just received correspondence from the current First Lady. Thank you for writing. We'll keep it on file, whatever. So your basic, thank you but no thank you letter. But it's been a journey. And when I first did this back in '91, when I first started this thing, I wrote every senator, all 100 of them. Every congressman and woman. That's 468 or 486 odd congressional reps. Every governor. I was maniacal.
And it's been kind of cool that as you've been telling it to your chef friends, because you do have chef friends all over the world, they all get excited about it and those seeds are planted. It's like you're feeling out who your 50 chefs will be. And then you just had a meeting this past week with someone from another country who might be interested in doing it in another place.
I had a meeting with a gal who was a former student of mine, and she's from Mexico, and her sister's involved in politics in Mexico. So I pitched it to her. I already did this once in the Bahamas at the Government House, which is their equivalent of the White House. Then at the Governor's Mansion in Florida, I was responsible for organizing chefs from all over America to go to Washington, D.C. for a 3-day hunger symposium. And October of '95 on World Food Day, that was a very historic day. That was the same day as the Man March.
Ooh.
And so we kind of got washed out by all that publicity from that sector. But it was fun. One funny thing I remember is, usually when chefs do an event like that or something, they'll get some sort of gift, and it's usually a plate. And they gave us this memorial plate for World Food Day. Blah, blah, blah. Here's the plate, had the date on it. And it came in this little tiny box, yay big, white, looked kind of like a pizza box. So these people were all walking around like, wow, what's all these chefs doing marching around Washington, D.C. with these pizza boxes? But the dream goes on, the seeds are planted, and you don't know how long a dream's going to take, but eventually, somehow, some way, someday, I promise you, as sure as I'm sitting here, this is going to happen.
You're an inspiration in the way that all of the no's that have crossed your path have never felt like no, they felt like not now or not yet, which is a hugely important way to live your life. Another thing I love about the way that you live your life, I always say, it's kind of funny to say about a chef, but I always say you eat life. You are just so curious and constantly watching for things to show up and go in different directions. Like just this week, just yesterday. I'm sorry, it was 2 days ago. But anyway, he's visiting Texas and he finds out about this bed and breakfast in Oklahoma and he goes up there. Tell him about the damn grass field, for want of a better word.
Went up to Pahuxa, Oklahoma, which is the Osage County, which is the county, very northern county in Oklahoma that borders Kansas. So I get up there and I'm just kind of snooping around. It's a cool little old town, very sort of Wild West feel to it. And at one time, this little town was the third wealthiest town in the world. It was known as Paris of the West from all the oil money. And it's a whole fascinating story that I can spend an hour.
You just fell up in it.
Yeah,
it cracks me
fascinating
up.
story. It would take another hour of your time, but let's get to the tall grass prairie. So I'm there talking to a gal who's doing a story on a feed store that's been in a family for 100 years, and they're celebrating that anniversary this year. And she's like, I'm like, hey, what should I do here? She's like, oh, you need to go to the tall grass prairie. Well, what's that? Oh, that's this amazing prairie where there's bison roam, and you have to go. So guess what? I got in my car, I drove 30 minutes.
Of course you
I
did.
get up there, and I'm stunned because I've been all over this country. Lived in 15 states, been to all but 5 of them. Had no idea about this little stretch of 149 million acres, which are reserved for bison to go out there and roam.
How tall is it?
The grass is 6 to 8 feet high, and it has 8 to 9 foot roots.
And I grew up in Wichita, Kansas. That's an hour away from there, and have never even heard of it. And you come visit from South Carolina and end up discovering it.
And it's stunning. And anybody watching this needs to go out there and check this out. It is a natural wonder in this amazing nation we live in. And this prairie at one time ran from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to the northern stretches of Canada. Before this country expanded and became the great nation it is now, it had this enormous swath of this tall grass where these buffalo roamed. And that little 149 million acreage is the largest spot of untouched prairie land in this nation.
And I have to see it now, so I'm feeling a ConsciousDallas.com field trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe, I don't know.
And just let me tell all the viewers out there, if you go, don't go in October. Which is when I went, because that's when they take all the bison and round them up and inoculate them and tag all the newborn calves and do their annual checkup. So don't go in October. Go in the spring when all the wildflowers are popping.
You're just a wealth of information. And what I love about that story is I hope that it encourages people, all of you here and me for sure. When you just wake up and you just show up and you just pay attention, the things that can shift your life and shift the trajectory of your life, if you just stop complaining about whatever's going on and just decide to use your time, talent, money, gifts, and energy to make the world a better place. Thank you for your time, Chef. I really appreciate you being here. And you have a book.
I do have a book.
And the name is?
The name of the book is called A Chef is Born.
Because you believe you were born to be a chef.
I was born to be a chef. It's an Amazon bestseller. Check it out on Amazon.com.
Where can they find out?
Amazon.com. And I'm up for a Christian Literary Award. Very excited about that.
And if they want you to speak, how do they find you?
They can go to my website, chefotto.net. They can send me an email there. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram.
Super cool.
Super cool, and so are you.
Thank you guys so much. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here, and thank you. We'll see you next time.